Okay, namaste everyone. Warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining in this session on unlocking the Hora chart and your real wealth. Hora chart, of course, we know it is known as the D2. It is one of the divisional charts of Vedic astrology. And thank you, Rajat, for putting this thing together for all of us. He's a very humble guy, despite despite living in Dubai and having a very busy schedule. He actually agreed to do this session for all of us for the benefit of everyone. And Rajat, I'll not take much of your time because we are short on time here. So just ask you to start immediately.
Thank you, Devarshi, and thanks everyone for joining in. Quick intro, my name is Rajat Kapoor. My association with Jyotish started about 5 to 6 years ago. Gradually started learning. So I do not come from a Jyotish family. Neither I am from a particular parampara or sort of there've been many gurus all throughout through books and research and mentorship and communities. And then I had this interest of writing and researching, which started about 3 years ago. So I run my own blog. And today, I decided to pick up a topic, which is the D2 chart Hora. What I feel is that this is something which is very important, but often is missed at times. So what we do is we have about 1 hour for this session. So the first 30 to 45 minutes, I would share with you what I'm supposed to be sharing. And then we'll open room for some questions, because that's where I would want to spend some time and interact with all of you. Should you have any questions in mind. Hora as a whole. Okay, so we all know that there are divisional charts, which are very important in Vedic astrology and Jyotish. So D2 is one of the divisional chart, which is mapped to the second house. Just like the Rashi chart, which is the D1 chart, is mapped to the first house. It is the natal chart. So similarly, you have different divisional charts which are aligned with 12 bhavas of the Rashi chart. Okay, so for example, D2 is aligned with the second house of the Rashi chart or the natal D1 chart. Drikana, which is the D3 chart, is with the third house, Chaturthamsha with the fourth, so on and so forth, and the Vamsha with the seventh house, the Shamsha with the 10th house. And it is also said that because I want to probably first spend a little time on some of the basic elements of the Varga charts, the division charts, and then we'll probably spend some time on the second house, and then we'll go to Hora in terms of what we want to talk about, because that's the ideal flow. So we have the Shadda Varga, which is the sixth important divisional chart. Then we have the Sapta Varga, which includes the Saptamsha chart. Then we have the Dasha Varga, which is up to the D10 chart, and then we have the sort of charts up to D60 as well. So here, what is said as per Brihaparasha Hora Shastra, and the divisional charts which are aligned with the quadrant houses. Okay, so there is no way that we can sort of do away with it. We have to focus. There has to be a lot of importance in those charts. So that is the D4, which is the Chaturthamsha chart, which is mapped to the fourth house. The D9, which is the Navamsha chart, which is mapped to the seventh house. There's some confusion around it as well, that some people feel that it's a ninth division, so it's aligned with the ninth house. But then it's a chart of marriage. That's where we see marriage from. So it is very much aligned with the seventh house.
Right.
In terms of
it actually clears a big confusion for most, no?
Yes, absolutely.
They think that Navamsha, there are a lot of, actually, of course, Navamsha has its utilities everywhere. But at the end of the day, we have to go to the basics instead of getting getting blown away by the miscommunication, or rather say the misconceptions that are there regarding Navamsha. Yeah, you can continue, Rajat.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Devarshi. And then the Dashamsha, which is mapped to the 10th house of the Rashi chart, very important. Now, besides these, the D2 chart, which is mapped to the second house of the Rashi chart, becomes very much important. And this is one chart. So I'll say two things, and I'm going to probably prove it in the next few minutes as well. So firstly, there are a very few people who know how to draw the correct D2 chart. So there's a way of drawing the D2 chart as well, correct? You won't find it in the software. The software, the way it is drawn, the structure, it is different. So for example, if it's Cancer rising in D2 and second house, they will show second house as Leo. But no, there are only two signs in D2. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, in the next few minutes. But yes, that's something which I'm sure it's going to be a big takeaway for us. So it's aligned with the second house. So the second house of the Rashi chart, what is it about? So this topic is about unlocking, your real wealth, what wealth is all about. Before even sort of digging deep into wealth from a mundane point of view, from the worldly matters point of view, looking at money and other things. Second house stands for a lot of more important things in life. So that's where we feed ourselves. So primarily food comes from the second house. And when you also look at the Bhavad Bhavam concept, so any house, so second house to any of the house is where you feed that house from. So you feed yourself from the second house. So that's where all the food comes from. So you see, we would probably be in a position to have wealth if we're able to feed ourselves and move in the right direction. So that's one. The other is family. We see family from the second house. Before we talk about wealth and dhana and of course the karakas for the same. So that's there. So the D2 chart is in a way gives us a very clear picture in terms of the challenges that we will have in life, whether there would be challenges within our family or from the people who are outside of the family, let's say outside world or with foreign lands and so on and so forth. And I'm going to give you some examples as well. So that's there. And then certainly, since we see wealth from the second house as well, so the D2 Parasha Hora chart plays a very important role in identifying and, in terms of the wealth that you would create and you would sustain as well. Okay. And that is why, there are two lordships in the Hora chart. So if you perhaps look at the Hora chart, it's either the sign of Cancer or Leo. Why? Because the luminaries are the creators and sustainers of wealth. So sun is the creator and moon is someone who would probably the one who would sustain it. All right. So that's how they play a very important role. And similar concept is for Raja Yogas as well. Sun is the creator or the initiator of Raja Yoga and moon is sustainer of Raja Yoga. And that is why we say that no matter, people have sort of a couple of big Raj Yogas in their chart, but a weak sun and moon and a weak Hora chart, it doesn't really function. Planetary strength, because most of these planets are either in Cancer sign or Leo sign. Okay, we also call it odd and even. So that really indicates their strength. So it plays an important role in Vimshapaka Bala, in the overall planetary strength, its dignity. And particularly, I would want to spend some time on the importance of connecting Hora chart with the Dasha. So that's something which many people don't really pay attention at. Okay, so that's something which we'll be doing. So such is the importance of Hora chart here. So second house, and then the second lord becomes the Dhanesha, or the one who would probably bring in wealth, bring in food, the family and our connection with the family and relation with the family. So before we sort of move on to the Hora chart, it's important to understand the placement of the second lord within the Rashi chart to probably have a basic understanding. And the Karaka becomes Jupiter for the second house. So that becomes the Karaka for wealth. Now I have a couple of slides and Devarshi, I can share my screen, right?
Yeah, I have enabled the option there. Just let me
Great. Great. So let me, okay.
Do you see the option there, Rajatji?
I do see, okay, but it's giving me open system preferences because I've never, okay, let me just check it real quick. Okay, 1 second. All right. I need to do this unlocking first. All right, I think it should be done. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. Okay, so that's where all of the Jyotishas come from. So Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra has the word Hora itself. So the question is, why don't we pay much attention to the Hora chart? So that itself, is a very clear message from Maharishi Parashara in terms of the importance of this divisional chart and the correct way of interpreting. Let me also share with you that there are a number of Hora charts. Okay, so there's something called Pravritti Hora, there's Kashinath Hora, there's Somnath Hora. So there's a different way of calculating all of these Hora charts, and they are seen for different reasons. Today, due to the limited time, we are not going to talk about the other special Hora charts, but we only put our focus on Parashara Hora. And God willing, if sort of near future, we do more sessions on. I'd love to share other Hora charts as well, which we sort of look at. Okay, but here it's about the Parashara Hora chart. Okay, so some of the points that I probably wanted to share with you. So the word Hora itself, now it has many meanings. Okay, the ancient text also suggests, right, somewhere that there's a Greek origin of this word, and that's where it has come from. It has many meanings. It means time, right? It means okay. So perhaps from the Jyotish point of view, it is also very much derived from a word called Ahoratri. Okay, so Ahoratri is so Ratri is about night. It's about the daytime, and it is a twofold division of a vara, of a day. Okay, so when so each zodiac is about approximately 2 hours. It takes about 2 hours for a zodiac to change on the eastern horizon in the sky. Okay, and Hora is simply dividing it into 2 parts, right? The first 15, so each sign is about 30 degrees. So it's first 0 to 15 degrees and 50 to 30 degrees. So it's about dividing it in 2 parts. So probably just to explain in a very simple manner in terms of its calculation. Okay, it's based on 2 divisions. The divisions are of day and night. Okay, and now one of the reasons why we have the sign of Cancer and the sign of Leo in the Hora chart, okay, because these are the luminaries, the only grahas who rule one sign. All the other grahas have dual lordship. Okay, they are the primary rulers or dominating forces for the day and for the night. Sun is the dominating force during the daytime, while moon leads the nighttime. Okay, and that's how the Hora is divided in 2 parts. Now there's an interesting, of course, text from Saravali, which also indicates that Hora refers to the ability of an astrologer to read the destiny. So besides its many meanings around time, right, around the division between the day and night, it also really talks about the outcome or the destiny where we intend to achieve. So for all the students of Jyotish, so we all are students of Jyotish, I'm a student of Jyotish as well, be it we call ourselves astrologers, it becomes mandatory for us to read this chart, okay? Because this is really test your ability to really understand whether you can read the past, present, and the future for the native who is there with you, okay? Now the Parashara Hora or D2 is the half division of the Rashi, which I have already explained to you. So 30 degrees divided into 2 halves, and that's how it is. Now let's also talk about the how the rulership is established. So when you have a particular ascendant, and I'll keep these calculations very simple for you, okay, in terms of explanation. So let's say, for example, you are an Aries rising, okay, and ascendant is at 12 degrees, okay. So in odd signs, Sun rules the first 15 degrees of the Hora. So 0 to 15 degrees in all odd signs is ruled by the Sun. And 15 to 30 degrees is ruled by the Moon. So the question is, if you're an Aries rising, now this is a question for all of you, and if your ascendant is at 12 degrees, where should be the ascendant in the Hora chart, in the D2 chart? The sign of Cancer or the sign of Leo?
It should be Leo, isn't it? It should be
What
Leo.
about the others? Leo? Yes, it should be Leo. Okay. And all the even signs is the other way. First, 0 to 15 degrees is ruled by the Moon, and 15 to 30 degrees is ruled by the Sun. Okay. So that's the basic, very simple way of calculating. So even if you don't have a software in front of you and you have the natal chart with the planetary degrees, you can very simply plot. I think this is the most simplest of the divisional charts to plot, because it has very simple calculations in place. Other than, because the more we move into the Krikana, Tasuchamsha, third division, fourth division, ninth division, so on and so forth, calculations become tricky there and difficult. So let's also talk about some of the grahas or planets which are strong during the daytime, and some of the grahas that are strong during the nighttime. Should you all want, you can use the chat function, because I'm going to throw some questions, or you can unmute yourself and answer it. If someone can probably share with me, not Devarshi, but someone else, that what are those day strong planets and night strong planets? Anyone? Anyone would like to share which are the day strong planets? The planets that are considered strong during the daytime. Sun is one, right? Naturally stronger during the daytime. What about Jupiter?
Jupiter is very strong.
Jupiter is very strong. Okay. What about Saturn?
Saturn is night. Yes.
Saturn is night.
Saturn is night.
So someone said day strong, Jupiter, Sun, Mars, Saturn.
I think Mars
night,
is night strong, isn't it?
Okay. I'll give you a very simple tip as well, just to sort of understand this difference. Okay, great responses. Some of you're there. So the day strong grahas are Sun, quite certainly, and Moon similarly would be night strong. Besides Sun, Jupiter and Venus are strong during the daytime. Okay, and Saturn and Mars are considered to be stronger during the nighttime. Okay. Now a simple, perhaps, this is from great scholar Pandit Sanjay Raji, that the Brahmins. So Jupiter and Venus are associated to Brahmins, so they are generally strong during the daytime. So if you probably keep this in mind, it's pretty much simple to understand. So that's how Sun, Jupiter, and Venus are strong during the daytime, and the tamas grahas are generally stronger during the nighttime, which is Saturn and Moon. But we're left with one graha here, which we did not talk
Mercury.
about, and that is Mercury. So when is Mercury strong?
All throughout the time, right? It's strong all the time.
Mercury is supposed to be strong during the daytime and also strong during the nighttime. However, there is a catch here. Now, with regards to the Hora chart, and I'm going to probably remove this misconception as well, Mercury is strong when it's in the first 15 degrees of the Hora, of that Hora. Okay. Now, I've given you a very simple answer to it. Now, a logical explanation. Okay. So when Mercury is in an odd sign and the odd hora, that's the hora of Leo, or it's in the even sign and even hora, that's when Mercury is considered to be strong. So it has the capacity to be strong during the day as well as night. But then this is a condition that really applies, which we often don't pay attention, and we just consider, oh, it's strong. So yeah, generally from the hora point of view, it is strong in the first 15 degrees. So probably give you a very simple sort of answer to it. Okay.
Rajat, just can you repeat the dictum once again for the benefit of everyone, I suppose?
Yes, sure. So let's take an example that if Mercury is, let's say, at in the sign of Capricorn at 24 degrees. Okay. So it will go to which hora? It'll be in Leo, in an odd hora, right? So Mercury in the Rashi chart is in an even sign. It's in Capricorn, but then it has gone to the odd hora because it's in the last degrees. It's between 15 to 30 degrees. So this Mercury, from a hora point of view, would be considered a weak Mercury. Okay.
Okay, so the dictum is that if it belongs to if it belongs to an even sign, and then it goes to an odd hora, it'll be considered as weak, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It should be considered as weak. Okay. For that matter. Okay. So we can probably we'll look at some specific examples as well in the next slide that I have. But then, firstly, I want to remove another myth as well in terms of drawing the hora chart correctly. Since there are two signs, so most of the softwares will show you, if it's an odd hora rising, which is Leo, then the Cancer would be presented in a way that's it's in the 12th house, North Indian chart I'm sort of talking about. But this is the correct way of plotting the hora chart. Okay. Is my document completely visible to you, to all of you?
It is.
Yeah. So this is how we actually make. So I've probably put a I've just shared a sample chart. Natal chart is there, and certain signs, and in terms of their degrees, whether they are 0 to 15 or 15 to 30, and how it really falls in the hora chart. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll do a bit of a Q&A just to understand which of these grahas in hora chart hold strength. Okay. And which of these grahas are really the ones which we need to pay attention on, and which we need to sort of watch carefully. Okay. So how about the sun in this chart? Sun is in Leo hora, so that's a pretty strong sun, right? Moon is in the Leo hora, so moon is stronger in the daytime, so quite naturally we can perhaps put a cross to the moon here, just to pay attention at. I'll come to Mercury in a bit, but Jupiter again in Leo, that's a strong Jupiter. Okay. Saturn is in the hora of Cancer, strong at the night time, so that's a strong Saturn. Venus, which is a day strong graha, but then it goes into Cancer, so that makes Venus again a cross on Venus. And then Mars is strong during the night in hora of Cancer. Now let's talk about Mercury. Is Mercury strong here or weak?
It's weak because it has changed the sign.
It's weak because Mercury is in an even sign, but it goes to an odd hora. So it is considered weak from a hora point of view. I'll come to Rahu and Ketu as well in a bit, sort of how we perhaps understand that, or perhaps interpret it. So these two signs itself, Leo is considered to be a day strong sign, and Cancer is considered to be a night strong sign. Okay, in both of these signs, so, and we also sort of, including along with Leo, all the odd signs, they have a masculine energy, right? So they're more of masculine and aggressive energy. Okay, whereas Cancer, along with all the other even signs, they have a feminine energy and are more passive. So there are emotions involved. So that's how they are more passive. Okay. Now, if we talk about wealth, okay, if we link wealth to the Hora chart and what grahas can give wealth, so there are different thoughts there. Or Jupiter gives wealth, or Venus gives luxuries, Mercury gives money, and all that. But my thought, and then sort of my research says, any graha can give wealth. Depending on its connection, its lordship, its placement, its the yogas it forms, a time period, even a moksha karaka or a very separative planet like Ketu can give wealth as well. Okay, so any graha can give wealth. However,
Rajatji,
yes,
since you said that any graha can give wealth, are we applying this dictum by looking at the Hora chart or by looking at the D1 itself?
we are applying this looking at both.
Okay.
Looking at D1 and looking at Hora as well.
Okay.
Because in Hora, the wealth would much be associated to the kind of time period that you have, the dasha, the antardasha, and the pratanta dasha that you're running at a particular point in time. So that will be the real deciding factor in terms of the food that you will consume, the overall family welfare, and the inflow of wealth and the accumulation of wealth. Now, why we say that second house is accumulation of wealth? Because second house is the house of storage. So that's where you store everything. You store your food, you store your money, you sit with your family and eat, and all of those things that's there. Okay, but any graha, in my opinion, any graha can give wealth. Okay, depending on different ascendants. So from a D1 perspective, we look at second house, fifth house, ninth house, and 11th. But I don't want to really get into those details and maybe just stick to the agenda. That is Hora. But Hora would really support the time period. Whereas if we talk about cash, okay, the cash, that's where Mercury is the significator or karaka for cash, right? Whereas Venus, Moon, so they're all mostly associated to liquidity. Jupiter is associated to knowledge and wisdom. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, in terms of that. Now we spoke about the day strong planets. We also spoke about the night strong planets and how their occupancy has been, and we spoke about Mercury here. Now in this particular chart, there are two grahas which are the cause of concern. There is Moon and there is Venus. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do to remedy, and such natives who have a weak Moon and a weak Venus in their chart, 100% this applies, and you can probably refer to your chart or others' chart as well. They would hate to have milk in their childhood, and even rice, those kind of foods, because that's directly associated to Moon. So anyone having a weak Moon or Moon going into the sign of Leo in Hora, they would have a big challenge, or they would be probably forced to have milk, especially during their childhood. Okay, so that's the kind of impact it has. Remedy, very simple. It's D2 chart. There are no mantras involved here. There's only food involved. There are only food items involved. Okay, so Moon, one of the remedy is to have milk. Venus, Venus is associated to sour things and sour food. Lemon is a great food that is associated to Venus. So if this person takes some lemon early in the morning upon waking up, in some water, that's a great remedy. Yogurt is linked to Venus, and similarly, if you'll probably research more and more about different grahas, you'll be able to associate with some of these remedies that are there, or probably the food items which are associated with different grahas there. So, for example, Saturn, there's those black dal, right, which is very much also associated to Saturn. So that's something which you can have. Okay. So that's it. So simple remedy is to identify the food items associated to these grahas. Now let's talk about Rahu and Ketu. When are they strong, or do they always create a problem in the Hora chart? Okay. So anyone has any opinion whether Rahu and Ketu, which signs should they be strong in, or probably anything that you know? Any thoughts?
Well,
Devarshi?
I'll not partake because I want the participants to participate.
Yeah. So it's okay. Even if you're wrong, so it's all fine. So let me open the chat window if anyone's popped up some messages. What about dawn and dusk? Okay, just a guess. Okay, we'll come to that a bit. Sun Hora. Okay, someone says Sun Hora. Okay. Anyone thinks Moon Hora? Someone says Sun Hora. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll give you a very logical explanation to it. Okay, and I'll talk about two things here, and it'll be very simple. Very much linked to the dictums and Jyotish and what we follow. Okay, we follow Brihadarashtra Shastra. Rahu and Ketu are considered to be strong in Cancer Hora. Okay, why? There is a shloka, there's a dictum, Shanivat Rahu Kujavat Ketu. Okay, so since Rahu is more like Saturn, Ketu is more like Mars. So this is one of the reasons why they should be strong in the sign of Cancer, not in the sign of Leo. The other reason is Rahu and Ketu are called the lunar nodes. So they're an integral, part of the moon. So you cannot, sort of keep them away from the moon. So that's how it is connected. And that is another reason why it should be strong in Cancer. So this is a very much, logical explanation to this. Okay. Now, when Rahu and Ketu fall in any of the signs, be it, the ascendant Hora, or, odd Hora, even Hora, any of these signs, they create some or the other challenge with regards to those houses. Okay. When we talk about medical astrology, or from our health point of view, because food plays a very important role in our overall well-being, in our overall wealth, what we consume, in our overall health, what we consume. So we cannot ignore the Hora chart when we talk about health of a native. Okay. Now here, since Sun rules the sign of Leo, now this is all about the overall bone structure in the body. Okay. The bones and the overall framework of the body. So that's what it is. Moon is more about, sort of the liquids that are there running around the body, right? So similarly, Rahu Ketu go in either of the signs, so it may create some issues relating to. So, for example, if it's in Leo, so it would have perhaps certain issues with regards to bones that it might create. But then there could be many other supporting factors here. So similarly, each graha has certain health significations as well here. Okay. So for example, Mars rules the nerves, the nervous system. So if someone has Mars going into the odd Hora, because it's strong in the daytime, if it goes into Leo, so there could be issues with regards to nerve related issues that could be there. If Mercury is weak, Mercury is skin. If Mercury is weak in this chart, like Mercury is weak in this chart, so this person can have consistent skin related issues. They could be minor, but that will be a sort of part of life. Remedy, again, it's the food that we consume with regards to some of these grahas that are there, and of course you need to further research on it That's what my advice will be. Now, how do we identify the real strength of some of these grahas? Whether they are, so there are 4 levels of strength here, okay, in a Hora chart. The 4 levels of strength is on the basis of the placement. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this. Okay. But then, as of now, from the consumption point of view, food, from a health point of view, and how to remedy it, it's pretty much simple for us. The 4 levels of strength. So if the graha is in the right sign, okay, now right sign would mean, if we link it back to the odd and even signs. So the day strong planets, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. They're day strong planets. So ideally, they should be strong in an odd sign. So the right sign, if I say, for them in the Rashi chart are all the odd signs. That doesn't mean that they will not do well in even signs. So just don't think about that. But yeah, from a right sign point of view. And the night strong planets, Moon, Saturn, and Mars, are supposed to be in the even signs. So those signs will be considered as the right signs for them. So the key strength of a planet is it's absolutely strong if it's in the right sign and the right hora. So for example, if Saturn is in an even sign, if let's say Saturn currently is in Capricorn, and it goes into the hora of Cancer, so that is considered a strong Saturn. It's considered a very strong Saturn, very hardworking Saturn, and very dedicated Saturn at the same time. So that is considered, pretty much strong. Now, the second level of strength is if the graha goes in a wrong sign, but the right hora. So let's take the example of Saturn. Again, if Saturn goes into the odd sign, but even hora. So it is still somewhat strong. Okay, so it will be, so perhaps, we can consider the first situation of a right sign and right hora as the own house, a strength similar to own house. Okay. The second condition of a wrong sign and right hora to be considered being in a friend's house. Okay. Okay. Being sort of, friendly there. The third level of strength would be the right sign, but the wrong hora. So Saturn in an even sign in the Rashi chart, but goes into the odd hora. So that's number 3. So that's more of neutral. So, it sort of does not have a lot of strength there. The fourth is perhaps the worst one, which is the wrong sign and the wrong hora. So that means Saturn going into the odd sign and the odd hora. So that's something which needs, careful attention, there, if other conditions are not supportive in the chart. So that's how you would probably prioritize. So remedy, you would first want to identify the weakest graha in the Hora chart based on these 4 rules, and then the remedy associated to that chart. Is that clear? Do you have any questions at this point in time? Do you want me to sort of repeat this?
Rajat ji, just a quick question here. Suppose
Yes.
a planet is weak, okay, and since the Hora chart is also about food, so suppose it has gone to the wrong sign as well as in the Rashi chart as well as in the Hora chart. So do we abstain from that food, or do we consume that food in excess?
Consume that food, not in excess, but then what I would advise is that could be the first thing that you can probably have. So for example, if it's moon, so maybe the first thing that you can have in the morning is a bit of milk. And I think that's but that's, yeah, milk is something which perhaps everyone should have to strengthen the moon. Okay, rice is again associated to moon, yogurt associated to Venus, black gram associated to Saturn, red pulses associated to Mars. Okay, wheat is associated to Sun. Some of the sweet things are associated to Jupiter. Okay, Mercury has a number of foods. Let's say someone has a weak Mercury, they should have maybe a few green pistachios in the morning, or sprouts. The green gram sprouts. So you soak it overnight, a bit of just handful of it, and just take it in the morning. Okay, if there's a weak Mercury that's there, so that's how it will strengthen it. See, there's a basic principle in Jyotish remedies. In order to strengthen something, in order to work on something that's going weak and you need to strengthen it, you need to consume things, okay, and not give away, not donate. But then if you need to perhaps do it the other way, something that's troubling you, or a malefic from the remedy point of view, then you sort of, leave that or sort of give away, and so on and so forth. Hora chart also indicates, the consumption of all kinds of, food. If there's a high tamasic energy, you would have non-vegetarians as well. You would have meat eaters, and of course, some of these grahas are associated to different kinds of meat as well. Rahu is associated to fish. Ketu is associated to meat, all kinds of meat, and mostly domesticated meat, goat, cow. Mars is associated to birds, chicken, turkey, eggs, all of those things. Saturn is big animals. That's something which is, so all of these grahas are associated to that as well. And often, I often in my consultations come across this question, and my thought is different, than of course some of the astrologers out there. I don't ask people or for people, okay, you need to quit these kind of tamasic foods and all, because if there's a karma of probably consuming something, they will end up doing it, right? That's how it is. But then what I do is I would look at the Hora chart. So for example, someone asks me, oh, I'm having chicken, is that good for me? Or I'm having eggs, is that good for me? I would probably look at it and say, oh, your Mars is in Cancer in the Hora, so it should not be a problem. But then if you want to have a spiritual path, then, because if that's there, then I would probably strongly advise that you quit or leave, because anyway it's sort of it's pretty much basic there. But then from that point, I generally don't advise people to probably consume this or that. But then yes, from a remedy point of view, some specific food items, that's something which I do. But this also indicates whether there could be a potential problem or not. So if Mars, let's say, goes into odd, then yes, there could be a problem with regards to tamasic food items related to that particular graha. So each graha, of course, they would have certain food items that are there. Okay. Now, if you talk about, we've spoken of all the planets, but then Lagna is also there. So Ascendant, okay, if it's an odd rising and goes into the odd Hora, it is considered to be, it gives Ascendant the strength. Okay, but if it's the other way, then there would be the Ascendant would be weak. Okay, Ketu and Rahu, if they go into the Ascendant, okay, there would be problems within the family. So that's something which you need to watch out for. There could be problems with people from within the family. If it goes into the other Hora, okay, opposite of the Ascendant in D2, then there would be problems from the outside world. There could be problems from foreign lands, okay, and that is why if someone wants to settle abroad or people go out, it is always interesting to see that, whether if they have Rahu Ketu in Ascendant, it would support, because, you've left your problems, or probably, in a way saying that you've left it, behind, and now you have certain support from the other part that are there. Okay. It is also said that when we talk about day and night strong planets, okay, Sun, so Jupiter and Venus are day strong planets, so they are very much dependent on the light. Okay, right? So and night strong planets are perhaps devoid of light. So when they come in contact of light, so it's a difficult sort of position for them. It's very much simple to when you step out and the sun is quite bright, you need sunglasses and you need shades to protect yourself. So that's the kind of protection which some of these grahas would also need if they are there. So yeah, moon, if it goes into the sign of Leo, such people they prefer wearing sunglasses as well. So sort of theme may sound a bit strange, but then that's maybe the modern connection to things that are there. And that is how it is also linked to our overall vision as well. Okay. Before I open to some questions, one last thing that I wanted to talk about was two things, in fact. One is in terms of longevity, and the other is understanding from the dasha point of view. Okay. Now, besides all the things, food, family, wealth, second house is also the Marak Sthan. Okay, it's the house of death. And though in Jyotish, we advise not to predict death, but then there are time periods which are like death-like sufferings or Maraka time periods. Without the Hora chart, you cannot identify those Maraka periods. That you would come across or you would have in life. So yes, so that's how it is. When does sort of death really happens? It happens when you stop consuming food. Okay, when you stop eating, when you stop drinking, that's when it really happens. Okay, but then till the time there are sufferings as well. People would suffer, probably be in the hospital for days, for weeks, years, but then still there. So that's there. But yes, the Hora chart is also important to identify some of those Maraka periods, and that is why we need to simply watch out the time period, which is the dasha, the antardasha, and the pratatya dasha to some extent, and perhaps see how these grahas are placed in the Hora chart, whether they're gaining strength or they're not gaining strength, whether they're in the ascendant or they're in the opposite side. How is that you can have the support? Okay, so let's say your dasha lord is pretty strong, so yeah, that perhaps solves a lot of problem. But then the antardasha lord gets weak, but then you need to look out perhaps the degree of weakness, the 4 levels that I explained to you a while ago. Okay, and on the basis of that, you'll be able to maybe create resources, but you might not be able to reach the outcome. But then if dasha, antardasha, pratatya dasha are probably running in a sort of positive manner, yeah. So even for such people, let's take an example of Rahu Mahadasha, okay, which is one of the dreaded Mahadashas, and someone having a very well disposed Rahu in the chart, and the dispositor is in strength, and Rahu goes into the sign of Cancer in Hora chart, and there is Rahu Mahadasha, Rahu Antardasha, and Rahu Pratatya Dasha, the very first period of Rahu. So a person can have great results, right? Because Rahu is pretty much strong in the Hora chart, so it might not really create problems as what we perceive to. It will not be a Maraka period. Okay, but then if planets go weak, then there could be suffering, there could be death-like suffering, there could be challenges, and they'll be associated to the lordship, the nature of the graha, its placement, and most of these factors, sort of there. So that is why we, perhaps give so much importance to the D2 chart. Okay. Now, what we can do is we can take this time to open up for some questions. And if you have questions, pop in the chat window or feel free to ask. Shukra is Rajasic. Yes, Shukra is a Rajasic.
It was my mistake. Yeah. Okay, Rajat ji, I'll just put one question from my end before we take the questions from the participants here.
Sure.
Suppose the Mahadasha Lord, the long Mahadashas, so as to say, say a Saturn Mahadasha period or a Venus Mahadasha period, which is of course the longest. So suppose Venus is in a wrong sign as well as in the wrong hora, then you say that the Venus period, which actually begins at the beginning of the dasha, will be challenging, or it will be challenging throughout all those 20 years.
Now, it could be the beginning could be challenging, but then the antadashas, that can change things around if it is supportive. But then to a certain extent, if Mahadasha, Antadasha, and Tatantadasha, all three are not supporting, so those could be some of the challenging periods. But then in case, there are some other very strong conditions in the chart, so it can probably bring down the negative effects to some extent, sort of there. Yeah, but that's, somehow we can probably see.
Right.
Okay. Chandra asks both, but Venus and Sun are enemies. Okay. So we are not linking the Graha relationship with their disposition in the Hora chart. So that's something that we probably not link.
It's also related to the benefic part of it, because Jupiter and Shukra, they are unconditional benefics here.
Absolutely. Jupiter, Shukra are unconditional benefics. That is there. Okay, one is a Sattva Guna planet, the other is a Rajas Guna planet. But then, if you look at the ancient texts, they are associated with Brahmins. Okay, and it is said that Kshatriyas used to marry in the night because night marriage and night born children would be Kshatriyas. Brahmins used to marry during the daytime. So that's how it is linked and related as well. So we would not look at we probably not mix the Graha relationship with it here. Okay. So
one question, please.
Yes.
You just said that Rahu Ketu are stronger in Cancer, but if in D1 chart, if Rahu is in Scorpio and which is a Nietzsche place, they say normally, then how will we take that? Is it strong or is it weak? How do you say that?
Okay, great question. So for Rahu and Ketu, we really cannot apply that 4-level principle that I just explained to you. The right sign, right hora, odd, even, and all that. So because they are the lunar nodes, because they're Chaya Grahas. But here, in case sort of in my opinion, even if Rahu goes into the sign of Scorpio, okay, some scholars and some texts suggest that it is Nietzsche, okay, in that sign. But then, for some, there are the other things as well. What we will need to look at first is the Lordship of Rahu, and most importantly, its results would be very much dependent on Mangala, its dispositor. And perhaps that could be maybe one of the topics for next time, which is on the dispositor and its importance. But yeah, that's what it will be there. But then when it goes to Cancer in Hora chart, so it gains support. Okay, it gains a good support. Right, so that's.
Can we say he will give a positive results for that?
It can give positive results, yes. In spite of being in Scorpio, it can give very much positive results during its time period.
Thank you.
Okay. There are many ways of constructing D2, like Lab Manduk Hora, Venkatesh Hora, etc. Your views on this? Yes, there are many ways of constructing Hora, and all of these. So there's a Hora called Pravriti Hora, which is very much similar to Parashar Hora. The concepts are similar. But then you place all the planets in the 12 houses, right? Not just 2. So that's the difference. So the closest to Parashar Hora is Pravriti Hora. And based on the degrees of the planets, you sort of place them through different signs. So there's a calculation that is involved here. Maybe sometime we can, pick up one of these horas there and, sort of answer some of the questions around that. But yes, each of those horas have a specific use. Now, whether we should be using or not is, again a question. But then D2 is Parashara Hora is most important, which should be used. Some of advanced softwares would give you the calculation of the other Hora charts. I'm not sure about J Hora, but then Parashara's Light and Shri Jyotisha do give you these calculations. But yes, they have their own use, but then it's limited time, so we really can't get into explanations. But then there's one Hora which is important, and then you have something called the Hora Lord as well, right? So the time that you're born, so which so you're born in a particular Hora, so which Graha is ruling that Hora, that also becomes a very important planet in your chart. So the whole life purpose sort of revolves around the Hora Lord. So that's from the D1, itself, the time period. Yes. Okay. J Hora has that features. Okay, great, very good, excellent. Questions? Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Thank you so much. This might be a basic question, but why is it that, like in the D1, for example, Venus has Digbala in Baba 4, but in this lesson, you're talking about Venus being day strong.
Okay, great question. So, firstly, why Venus has gains a directional strength or is considered to be, sort of Digbali in the 4th house. Okay, so perhaps anyone has any thoughts? Anyone would like to probably share their opinion? I'm sure there are a few people who might have certain understanding as to why Shukra gains directional strength in the 4th house.
Yeah, and not just Venus, also like Mars is night strong in what you're speaking of, but it has Digbala in the 10th house in the D1. So yeah, I would love to learn more about that.
Yes. Okay. Great. Great. Devarshi, any thoughts from you?
The thing is that I would just want to say that Venus gains the directional strength in the 4th house because it is the Karaka for Sukha, right? So 4th house is the Sukha Bhava.
Okay.
So
see, 4th house, in my opinion, has many Karakas. Okay, so 4th house is about the mother, is about happiness. We see vehicles from the 4th house. We see Bhumi from the 4th house, construction of house from the 4th house, your homeland from the 4th house. Okay. So there are primary karakas of the 4th house, that is Moon and Venus. So Moon is associated to mother, and Venus is associated to
conveyance,
primarily to vehicles. Okay. So that this is one of the reasons why it, both Moon and Venus, they are the karakas of this house and sort of gain the directional strength in this house as well, which is the blessings of the Dikpal Devata. Okay. Now, if you look at Bhumi Karak, which is the Karak of lands, that's Mars. Karak of construction,
Saturn.
Okay. That's Ketu. I have a bit of a different opinion.
Yeah, that is okay. That is okay.
Right. So the constructing of house. Okay. That's Ketu. Bandhu Karaka. Okay. Bandhu Karaka. That's Mercury. Right. Because 4th houses, they are also about public, other people. So, your relationships, that's there. Mars gains directional strength in the 10th house. That's all the house of action. That's where the work happens. And then Mars loves to be at work. Someone who wants to be out there into the field, doing things. It's all about actions. That's what the 10th house is all about. Okay. Shukra is, day strong, right? Reason, because it is not devoid of light. Okay. And then it's associated. Yeah. So yes. So what it means is that Shukra would never have issues or problems with the light of the sun, because if you look at practically and scientifically, Shukra is the most, after sun, it is the most brightest of the grahas in the night sky. Okay.
Right.
And someone just mentioned that sun and Shukra share an enmity. But I share a bit of a different opinion here, which indicates some kind of neutral association as well, because the lights that grahas emit are from the sun. If they had so much of enmity, why would Shukra emit so much of light? If you look at the night sky, most cases, it's pretty much visible in most parts of the world. Okay, the graha that is the brightest, and if it's not blinking, that's Shukra there. Okay, but then from its Brahmin connection, it is strong during the daytime. Jupiter and Venus being the one of the natural benefic planets as well, and Saturn, Mars being the tamas planets too, which are strong during the night. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it kind of is tying up a loose thread that I didn't know how to connect. So thank you.
And even if you look at the connection between Shukra and Surya, whenever Surya, whenever Shukra goes into Leo, it becomes very, very pure. It purifies it, right? Surya purifies that rajas of of Shukra.
Absolutely. Some of at times I've seen in charts, Sun and Venus conjunction, people doing very well in spite of whatever fear it is that's being created
And
around it.
Even if you consider the remedies for relationships, then when Venus goes into Leo, the deities connected to the sun are sometimes given as remedies, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is there. There's also another thought that someone who's having an ascendant in the sun's hora, that is Leo, they are likely to be more effective during the daytime. Okay, their energies are channelized very well during the daytime. But someone has the ascendant in Cancer or the moon's hora, that those people are somewhat, from a physical point of view, energies are much higher during the nighttime. That's sort of also there. Like I'm my ascendant hora is the sun hora. I'm an early morning person. I like to be very active during the afternoon hours, during the daytime. That's there. But then, try to balance as well.
Rajesh, I'll just take one more question and then we can wrap it up.
Sure.
So Rajashekar ji has asked, first hora of every day is after sunrise is that of the same planet. So this hora will have that shifting in the order of Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and so on. So is there any connection to the natural order of the horas and then between the hora chart?
Okay, so orders of the hora and the hora chart. So hora chart is based on so primarily your ascendant hora. So for example, you're talking about the varas, the days that so for example, if we start with Sunday, the first hora is of sun, and gradually we move on to moon, Mars, Mercury, so on and so forth, and we shift days. So those are the horas ruled by the grahas. But in the hora chart, it is primarily dependent on two things. So one sign, so for example, if it's Aries rising, so it's a 2-hour period, right? So the first hour would be, it's a north sign, it would be sun. The second hour would be moon. The first 15 degrees of the ascendant, 15 to 30 degrees of the ascendant. That's what would define your rising hora sign. And then for the grahas, it's more or less on the degrees. So that's the only connection which it has. So it does not have much closer, connection with that. I hope that answers.
Okay. All right then, Rajat ji. I'll not take much of your time because we have agreed on a wrap-up time as well. So
Sure,
thank you everyone for joining in. We had a wonderful session. And thank you, Rajat ji, for sharing that knowledge with us. And hopefully we will do maybe a part 2 of this session on the Hora chart, or we can also do a session on the, on the Hora Lord, as we had discussed initially during our conversation when we had first.
Certainly,
Rajatji, thank
certainly.
you.
Better.
You're a great teacher. Your explanations were very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
everyone
Appreciate it.
for joining.
Thank you all.
Hopefully
Thank
we'll,
you, Rajatji.
I'll see you the next time when we'll have another guest on Wednesday. So that is, just wait for that announcement. And thank you, Rajatji, for sharing your valuable time as well as your knowledge
Thank
with
you.
all of us. Yes.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you.
Jai Shri Krishna.